everybody, this is the Twins Instruction back with another video. Today I'm going to be showing you how I made this Star Wars blaster, more specifically called the SE-14C. So what I first ended up doing was opening up a Photoshop file of the gun itself, and using the piece of paper I traced it because I made it big enough where the handle would fit my hand. And if you don't have Photoshop, I'm going to link another program down below. I'll explain it more in the description, and it's free to use. So right here I am sectioning off all the parts that are going to be used not by foam. So I'm going to be actually using PVC for those parts, and then these parts are Ava foam. Alright, so after you're done tracing all of the parts, I ended up tracing one, putting it off to the side, and so I have all of my parts here. So one trigger, 3 of these parts, 2 of these parts, 1 of these parts, etc. I have one base of the gun facing one way and the other one's facing the other. And I didn't do that for the other pieces because they're smaller, but I did that for this larger pieces because I don't want to have to erase off so much of the back tread. Next, you can get to cutting these out, and you're going to need an X-Acto knife for this one, or scissors. With all the parts cut out and ready to be glued together, first I'm going to be taking the middle part of the base and cutting a section out of it so I can put a spring in for the trigger later on, but I will explain that when I get to it. After you sand all of the rough edges off of this pistol and everything is all nice and smooth, next you can plan out the barrel situation, which goes just right on top of there. So there are 2 different sizes, so you're gonna have to go through some different size PVC to get the right dimensions. Looking at the picture, I had started off making the barrel by creating the section that sticks off. So I drew a line and then kind of colored it in. So that's where I'm going to be cutting on the PVC, and then the same thing on the other end of the barrel, which I'll show right now. That just goes off a couple inches. I will be wrapping foam around the end to create the detail, and I capped the other end just to close it up with a piece of foam. To continue with the detail, I beveled off a circle of Ava foam and I glued it on like so. On the other end of the gun, I'm doing a similar method of using craft foam to create the detail, but this time it's going to be layered. So I created one layer there at that length, and then there are the other layers. So it's just stacking craft foam on top of each other. Try to clean up the seams as best you can, but you can use clay later on. And to close off the other end, I ended up using Ava foam and then just sanded it down to blend it with the other craft foam. To make the detail that goes on top of the barrel, I just used one piece of Ava foam, and I drew on the barrel where it would go, and I used hot glue to glue it on. This is the scope, and I marked off where that would be glued on because there's a base that I made. Doing a similar method from before, I created this leveled effect of craft foam onto the scope. Again, try to clean it up best you can. And then on the other end, I used 2 pieces of Avafoam. Now that both the scope and the barrel are glued on, it is time to continue with the detail. And there will be 2 strap-like things that go right on the edges of those lines, which I will show right here. And then some other square details that I glued on, which I will also be gluing on top of those, which will be bottle caps, which are like the sight adjusters for the scope. To make the trigger movable, I'm using a pen spring, which all you gotta do is take apart a pen. I glued it to the back of this trigger that I made up of craft foam. And then I'm going to be gluing that spring into the back of the gun. So right here, you can see I squeeze it a bit, and it moves. This is completely optional, it's just for mainly the effect. And as you can see, the handle is also ripped up in the last shot, so I used craft foam and just other foam to support it. I'm using clay to round off all the edges. I'll link a video in the description to my last video explaining how to seal edges with clay. To continue with the detail, I am using the tip of the Dremel head onto this spot right here. Kind of goes haywire, but it works out in the end because you just kind of, there you go, there you go. Now that that is done on both sides, I'm using a different Dremel bit to cut lines right there and there. Once the lines are cut, you can use a heat gun to make a pop. And I also am using a heat gun to go over the entire gun to heat seal it, because the heat makes the foam expand, so it closes up the pores, so the paint doesn't seep into the pores. And the paint just looks more realistic. So this is the final gun whenever it's painted all black. And I'm doing a weathering job on it just by taking a paintbrush with some silver and just going on the edges and anything that would be nicked. So like there, just showing an example how I created those lines just by very lightly going along the edges. This is up to you how dirty or weathered you would like the gun to be. And then at the end, you can also, if you want to, put some plastic into the scope, both ends, but that's optional. Other than that, the gun is completed, and you can go and shoot some stormtroopers, or add more weathering, or and there's leather that I added onto the handle, of course. That's again entirely optional. It's just something I added, personal touch. This gun was a lot of fun to make. I hope to continue making more guns, and more videos using this clay to seal up the edges. I can't wait to continue making videos, and I really hope you guys enjoyed. So like the video if you liked it, and subscribe to tune in for more videos.